Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Artificial Intelligence podcast by Pre.dev. Today is a very special day because thus far we've only had one of the Intelli-Gents being introduced on the podcast. The truth is that there's two of them. So the problem is this guy, he was out of service for a little bit. He had to get his shoulder reconstructed or whatever it is. I don't know the details. He basically has a robotic arm at this point,
Essentially.
He's like Will Smith in iRobot now, So yeah, this episode is titled The Return of the Jedi, because this guy is a Jedi, real life Jedi, coding expert at business, all around great guy, and my co-founder of Pre.dev. So I'd like to introduce Arjun Jain.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? Really pumped to get into it. The journey of Pre.dev has been pretty amazing, and I think, we've been just so excited to keep on spreading the word. And I think, we've been in the space for so long too. Adam and I both started coding since we were like 14. So we've kind of seen just the world of building software and stuff just evolve over since we were so young. And no, it's been really cool to kind of see the evolution of AI and how that's being applied now. And our backgrounds have served really well to apply it to our audience well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Arjun and I, worked together on stuff and met each other when we were around 18 years old. So we've known each other for over 12, 13 years at this point. But, let's fast forward the story a little bit, rewind it from today, but fast forward from the first time we met to, it was August, I think, of 23. And, I was telling you about this idea. It wasn't even called Pre.dev yet at this point. It was nameless. It was just like supposed to be a landing page for my consulting firm. So it just didn't have a name, but I showed you this demo and, like what were your first impressions of Pre.dev? First time you heard about it, and, what was it like? Like, what were your impressions?
No, of course. I think for like the last few months prior to that, you and I were like speaking a bunch about just LLMs and the rise of AI, and we were messing around with Chat GPT a bunch, just seeing how it could apply to just like our day-to-day operations and everything. And so, and right up until that point, I was working with teams like implementing complex software, and just remembering then like so much of my time was playing a role of a architect, where I'm like, okay, in order to build this complex thing, these are all the things that are required, how they interlink with each other. So I think when you showed me the graph of a way to visualize software, that was just kind of like a breakthrough moment, because up until then, no one had really you leveraged Chat GPT and LLMs in a visual manner. Because 2023, it was still really early on in terms of access to APIs and everything. So it was just like the first time where I was like, oh wow, okay, the output of AI isn't just raw, like a raw string. It can actually be put in a way that allows me to like visualize and understand things in a much more simplified manner. And in a manner that allows not only, me as a architect to grasp, but like a layman too, who just wants to understand, okay, what is actually required to get this built. And so it was then I was like, okay, yeah. And I remember I was like, okay, like Adam, like damn, like this is just bigger than, you know, optimizing this for a- agency. Yeah, like let's go to town. And I think we probably decided to work with each other from the moment you sh showed me it. Because it
Yeah.
was just like, yeah, and just with my background of like working with teams and everything, it was just such an obvious problem that just had a big enough market to actually turn turn this into a product itself.
Yeah, it was I remember like I spent 3 months on that demo before I showed you, and then you were pretty much the first person and our other friend Michael Powell that I showed. But
Yeah.
I had like I kind of knew that you were the one that was gonna like had a better chance of giving up everything and like taking the leap of faith at like 30 years old, you know?
Yeah,
So
yeah, 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 yeah.
I like kind of came into that conversation thinking, because like in my mind, I was like, it was solidified already. I was like, I spent the last 3 months like night and day grinding on this, trying to get it to work. At that time, I was like parsing JSON from raw like strings in ChatGPT 2.5 or some shit. Like, and it was just like so bad at it. It was so bad at it that I'm
Yeah,
like, what the
it's
hell? But then like when I saw it, like, it took like a minute to load, but then you saw it like break down the like front end and like basic back end and stuff. I was just like, so when I showed you, I was like, yeah, I knew you did a lot of consulting too. So you've done a lot of consulting, fractional CTO work in the past that, maybe you could speak on the parallels of Pre.dev, because it really has like a consulting foundation versus an pure engineering foundation. Even
yeah,
though ourselves are more on the vibe coding hacker type uh archetype when we're classifying our coding abilities, right?
yeah,
Like we're
yeah,
not
yeah,
we're not like the enterprise like super official scrum this that coder. We've kind of been like the freestyle coder, but it started as a consulting, planning, you know, Jira, all of this stuff that we didn't even do, to be honest with you, for
yeah,
most of
yeah,
our
yeah,
consulting projects. So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. No,
what are
it's
your thoughts on that?
yeah, yeah. It's really interesting and it's funny because it's like we like now use pre.dev in like within the org, especially when it comes to like orchestrating projects for like interns or right. And so yeah, and it's an interesting moment where like using your own product has like just made you a better manager too. So I think that has just been really cool to like see, especially now. But yeah, I think the to your point, right? Like we were very freestyle in the way that we built things, like even all the way back in school, right? Like we were just kind of had this abstract idea, and then just kind of go to like just go to the code immediately. And I think, we we saw it works to like some extent. You can get somewhere, but then at some point you just have to take a step back and be like, okay, wait, actually, how is this built? What is the manner in which it makes the most sense? And so, and the cost of not doing that in the earlier stages only like kind of appeared much later on. And so there were times of whether like, okay, sometimes it made sense to make that because the cost of planning early on, the time was just we just didn't have that time time then, right? But now, like obviously having that done within like a minute, it really does now like transform that. Okay, yeah, wait, hold up, just feed it into Pre.dev, like what your abstract thing is. Okay, yeah, here's the plan. Okay, yeah, it makes sense. This is what I had in my mind. But now it's great to have it documented out. Because that's like one of the most annoying things to like do, right? Is to write out, okay, this is how we built this and built that. Um, and so yeah,
When
I
you were
like
doing consulting, like what um experience did you have with clients? Because it's one thing when you're doing planning within your org, feature planning, sprint planning, but it's another thing to start something from scratch and then have to map it out. Like, what were your pain points that you noticed with clients you were consulting for, or even the companies you were doing fractional CTO work for?
Yeah. First step, I mean, was because it was a situation where I wasn't the only engineer, so it was like going to be a team from the get go. It would always start with a whiteboarding session first, right? So it was actually in those worlds where like, okay, yeah, we did have to like spend some initial phase to like just like map out what it is that is actually required to get built out. And that would just be a lot of like back and forth and everything, which would take like, um, two, 3 weeks to just like finalize that. And so, yeah, it was just that time we had the luxury of time then, to like take that time to, plan and everything. But yeah, it was super manual. Um, yeah, we're there.
You're putting food on the table. Like, how long did it take to get to the actual money in your bank account close of a client?
Yeah. I mean, sometimes it could be like from the, initial time we like meet and everything, and then that whole phase, it could be like I think the earliest was probably like a month. Um, and so, yeah, I mean, often it would be longer.
Wow. What about so I guess let's say now with pre-dev, how does that change it?
Yeah. Oh my God. I mean, uh, it's cool. Like,
Because we consult with clients still. We still
yeah, 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 of course. And, we can get into like what our day to day, and one of the most fun parts of my day is when I get on calls with founders. Um, it's always fun to learn what like other people are seeing in the market and everything, and it gives you a chance to like think about other markets. But that it completely changes the game, because we'll like feed their idea into Pre.dev itself. It'll, appropriately ask it about, okay, what are the specific things that a user is going to achieve in whatever it is you're trying to build. So it takes a very like, PM approach of like, okay, what are the user flows? I mean, at this point, we're at the stage of where like we can basically get to like that first like proper draft of a scope within a call. So like within, this like 15 minutes or like half an hour, yeah, you get that initial scope, and you can be like, okay, yeah, this is actually what's required to build it out. And so, I mean, yeah, it just completely just like alters the game. And I was actually speaking with the founder right prior to this too, because we're obviously matching these founders with agencies too. I'm like, it actually changes your initial kind of relationship with the agency then, because instead of having to spend the initial time going through the scope and trying to figure it out, actually these initial like few calls should actually be much more about what are the vibes, right? Is this actually an agency and stuff that you want to work with, right? And so that just people didn't have the luxury and the time to be able to do it now. And so it's actually a very beautiful kind of thing to see AI is actually kind of enhancing human to human interactions in that way, where that manual stuff that you were just forced to do, just you no longer have to. And it's much more about the vibes then.
Speaking of vibes, what you've talked to founders that have used vibe coding, what do they say when they come to us? After
Yeah.
what was their experience with vibe coding? Like, did it get them to the finish line?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It does it I think it it does very well for what it can do, right? I think, there was an initial delusion phase where it's like, oh, it's going to build like my full app and everything there. Um, but they come to a point where like they're seeing their dream, they're seeing it slowly becoming reality, but realizing that like, okay, they don't have the skill set to manipulate these vibe coding tools to actually get it to that end stage, but it's made that dream a lot more like realizable. So it's really interesting. They come in with a really like optimistic view of like, oh wait, you know what? This isn't gonna actually take, a year to like build, but I do need an expert to now help build this. And so yeah, they like start off with like, uh Replit or V0 or whatever else is there, and they get like their first page or something. But obviously, 95% of the time people are building much more complex things. And so it's cool for them to see the inklings of the start. But yeah, they need help to like actually, you know, architect it out and everything. And then that's obviously where like pre-dev is just takes it to that next stage, right? Okay, let's get you from this initial like prototype-ish phase and, let's actually get you to like a proper product.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I mean, that definitely makes sense. We see a lot of people and a lot of hype around vibe coding, and where it only helps us, right?
Yeah,
And we
yeah,
are a vibe coder ourselves because
yeah,
our product does have a vibe coding aspect to it where there is prototype generation where you can, prototype your front end in
yeah.
React. And so we're not anti vibe coding, but we do feel that, sometimes people confuse our product with, say, V0, Cursor, these vibe coders, and that's not actually what we specialize in. Like, if you could, if you could say, like, what's special about pre-dev?
Yeah. So at its core, I think, it solves a critical kind of gap in the market of that of tran transparency. So like what we really train the model and everything to do, right, is to architect, right? And so with that comes an understanding of like, okay, what is actually required to build it, right? And then we obviously then trained the model to understand the complexity of certain task items. And then that obviously gets you to a place of where you can estimate the amount of hours that it would take a dev to get that built. And then from hours, you can obviously just multiply that by whatever salary rate, and then you get an idea of what is it going to actually cost you to get this thing built. And so that just completely didn't exist in the market. And that's what people would pay others to do, right? And so that is really the fundamental thing that we offer. And that's like it's really interesting because to get to that end pricing transparency stage, we obviously had to invent these kind of things and being able to architect and everything to get there. And so that obviously gets us into a lens where people can kind of see us and be like, oh wait, this is like V0-esque, because of you're in that chat interface speaking about a product and everything. But yeah, and so yeah, now that we give you this transparency and everything, we've like layered features upon that, that kind of get you to that stage of actually being able to build it. And that comes in two ends. Either it's being able to prototype within Pre.dev itself. We have our own kind of mini code gen engine that can essentially build upon what we've recommended to build their app. Or you could go through a much more concrete path, which is being able to hire vetted devs to actually build it, right? And so, yeah, I think being able to offer both is just a smart path, right? Because we obviously want to lean into the AI side, but we also want to make sure that people have a avenue to get their stuff
Mhm.
built.
Yeah, like we don't claim to be a full stack app in minutes, right?
Yeah,
We say like, look, we we kind of call it what it is, which is, look, right now these LLM solutions can get you so far, but they're not going to take you to like a production scale uh you know product. It's going to take a little more work. And at a certain point, especially if you're not a coder yourself or not like a super good coder, um, you realize even maintenance, like simple things like maintenance, maintaining your code base and bug fixing, like there's all kinds of things that people don't really plan for and think about that come to actually maintaining, scaling a product, especially, if you're serious about putting it in the hands of users and it's having active connections every single day, you're going to run into problems. And then there's a certain point that you really do need a team of experts behind you. And that's where, we acknowledge to get you a good percent of the way there, we say farther than like anything out there that exists, because, we don't just give you, say, a prototype of your front end like V0. We also give you the scope of work that's like an 18-page document spec that describes your exact app. And you could actually take that and go to Upwork and hire someone if you really wanted to and have something really good to present to them. But
yeah,
obviously, why would you want to leave? And we could just make it happen a lot easier.
yes, 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 yes. E- exactly. It's and it kind of it makes me think about what the future role of like a engineer or like a dev is, and it's interesting because it's like because we obviously use AI in our workflows. We basically require our engineers to use AI in their workflows too, and it's increasingly that like the way to treat AI is that of a tool, right? That a tool in the hands of an expert is always going to be better than that of a when you have
Yeah,
no
like
idea
Max
how.
Verstappen, right? You put like
Yeah,
some average Joe in an F1 car, he's not going to drive it.
exactly, right. And so yeah, I think increasingly the role of a dev will be this kind of expert tool user of AI with that underlying knowledge of how coding and you know how to build software. Because if you don't know how to build software and you use AI to build software, it's going to break.
Yeah,
No matter even you get to the AGI kind of phase, to really trust in everything, subject matter experts are going to be required.
100%. There was one domain or like avenue that we didn't explore. We explored, you know, vibe coding it yourself, getting that initial prototype. We explored hiring a developer with a clear, transparent scope of work, cost, quote, whatever you want to call it, architecture, diagrams. But what if you want to use Pre.dev with your own team? One thing I want to that's the last case that we didn't cover. And if you want to use it with your own team, this is a feature that we launched like a long time ago now. We connect with Jira and Linear, and essentially you can sync, reverse sync um, tickets, because that's also one of the most underrated time consuming parts of PMing that you know isn't really talked about. But Arjun, you know, I did the Jira integration, Arjun did the linear integration. So we worked with their APIs. That was before MCP, maybe we can, mess with that. It'll make it a little bit easier. But yeah, what are your thoughts on Pre.dev's internal use and like examples of us actually using it in our own organization to speed up project management, product management.
Yeah. No, sure. So I think, where we've seen it get used the most is by our dev a- agencies, right? Because it is that optimization of that entire kind of client flow, right? You build the initial scope, you chat with Pre.dev, refine it, you finalize it with the client, and then to your point, okay, all right, yeah, we can export this to linear or whatever instantly. And then they can auto assign to their dev team, and it's all set and everything's ready to go. So yeah, I think that just it's more, yeah, right. So it's really just kind of Pre.dev kind of being this kind of underlying planner and everything, where we do want to hook up into whatever other tools that you use to manage. And so, yeah, I mean, we've y y used that with like interns too. And it's funny because like we ourselves didn't use linear in the start, and so Pre.dev kind of like force us to,
Yeah. You're
which
like,
is
wow, that was easy.
great.
Like you
Yeah.
don't have to
Because
like
like
sit there and
manually,
write all those tickets and stuff. Like
yeah. It's so annoying, and it's like I don't want to, spend my time doing that. I don't mind like verifying and editing it. Okay, yeah, sure. But having to write it from scratch, God, pain. And so yeah, just like not having to do that now, just it just makes it a breeze. And so we talk to our users a bunch to like understand how to like streamline that even more. And so yeah, we'll be making that even like smoother and everything. I think one of the things that we're gonna do very soon is just also making sure that there's a re reverse sync. So no matter what platform or and stuff you're managing the team and editing the code base in, that remains within the context of pre.dev. So yeah, more and more it's going to become a critical part on how your engineering team is managing things.
mhm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. What about in a world where devs are automated out by coding agents? Like, where do we fit in?
Yeah, be in the most beautiful kind of place because we're the orchestrator of the agents. And I think there's actually gonna be a few fun things to like mess around with. I think because like Linear has some interesting automations now, and I think they're gonna increasingly have it with AI agents where you could get like a specific sub task item to be orchestrated by an agent within Linear itself. And so, yeah, right. So the flow is just really nice then. Then like Pre.dev is creating that full like epics stories task items to get your entire thing built. And then, yeah, okay, all right, let's see what the coding agents can do. But ultimately, you need a means. You relying on this on the tool to kind of manage itself is a very dangerous spot to be. And it's gonna the tools will get better and better too, but complexity is gonna increase as well. So it's gonna be really interesting because you're gonna actually need more devs because the complexity of what things are that the AI is gonna build and what users require is gonna increase too. So I think we're gonna get into an interesting virtuous cycle there. And I think the biggest example of like where a company went like too deep into AI and then had to backtrack a bit was the Klarna CEO, where I think he tried to replace most of his customer support team with AI, and it just didn't work well. And I think he had to rehire like a bunch of them back because it it and he admitted it, like, it was an they had the luxury of doing that experiment, and obviously they managed to fix things up. And AI obviously helped, but it's not the kind of like end all. Yeah.
All publicity is good publicity, though, right? You
Yes, it
probably
is.
got
It is. It is.
probably
Yeah.
got
Right.
users off of that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. 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 So I mean, props to him.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly. All right, so this episode's dedicated to you because called the Return of the Jedi. What is I'm gonna hit you with some, questions personal about your personal workflow, stuff like that. What do you think is your 10x skill personally? Right? Because the people don't know you. I know you. I know, you know, um, your background and everything, but the people don't know, like, if you had to pick any one of your skills, what's your 10x skill?
Yeah. No, I think it is much more like it's there's like raw skills and then more like abstract ones. So in the more abstract one, I think it's just higher order thinking. So um like right, being able to like analyze markets, trends, models, just like, and that's what I spent a lot of the time on my calls with like founders too, spending time like thinking about their ideas, how to approach things, the psychology behind the choices you make. And so right, and so like, and we spend like hours a day just like doing strategy and thinking on that higher order matter, and that's our jobs too, right? As the leaders here, right, we have to make sure that we're on top of things and we're th- thinking about things on that higher order. But then in terms of just raw skill, I do code pretty wicked well. And I've had the privilege of like learning from some really great people. Um, 'Cause like I was a lot more when I first started to code and everything, I was much more hacky in my approach, and then just had the chance to like work under someone who's just like who had just worked in who had worked at uh the gaming company
Yeah.
Bethesda,
Wow.
and just had worked at like like proper hardcore engineering teams. And so he like forced me to like kind of upgrade my stance and really just like forced me to like have a very modular approach. And it was very cool because that also helped my like frame of like thinking too, of like boxing things up in their like smallest things. And so yeah, it just allows me to like look at problems as opposed to like this grand kind of oh my god, to like narrow it down. Um yeah.
Speaking on basically us being a first mover, right? And first movers could be an advantage or a disadvantage, right? Like a lot of companies throughout history that were second movers were the most, like Facebook, and stuff like that were the biggest companies. But if you are a first mover, you still have an advantage, but it forces us to the only way that we're going to win when that second mover comes along is if we innovate twice, almost put it that way.
Yeah.
So if you had to put that in perspective, what do you think our next big innovation has to be?
Yeah. So really I think what because not we've kind of entered a kind of consumer-esque market, right? I actually think more so than, we're obviously going to improve the AI models and everything and get more accurate and all of that. And we're going to improve the code gen side and everything. But I think overall, the fundamental thing is really the experience. That really has to be our innovative approach, right? Because fundamentally, like people have to use Pre.dev. And if the experience of using it isn't clean, then it doesn't matter if we have the best model or anything there, right? And so I would say from a really what kind of our focus and everything really is now is just really diving deep into the psychology of how they, what is their mindset of going into this, like what are the outputs they really want to see, how do we streamline that more and more. And so it's going to really just be bundled around, okay, optimized user experience, making sure that the friction that they're coming to us for is being solved immediately.
Sure.
um yeah.
Yeah, like designing a next level user experience for
Yes.
sure. I think
Yes.
that because, we've been experimenting with different angles of this problem
Yeah.
and as a result have innovated in a couple of different areas, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, the next step definitely would be that user experience being like, you know, Steve Jobs with the iPhone or
Yes.
iPod,
Yeah.
something
Right.
like that,
Going
where it's like that
hardcore
perfect user
deep.
experience for the market because of like, that, you know, dedication to engineering excellence.
Yes.
One
Yes.
second, let me turn on my light. I'll cut this part out.
Yeah.
Okay, bet.
Nice.
Let me move it. I think we got some good shit though so far.
Yeah. 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 No, we've got some good quotes there.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sorry guys, you might have noticed that a light just came on. But let's get back to the question. So we covered his 10x skill. Um we covered the next big innovation for Pre.dev. What's your personal workflow? What's your workstation look like that when you wake up every morning and you tune in at 9 a.m.? What is your workstation? What's your AI workflow? What's that looking
Yeah.
like?
Yeah. Yeah. Sure. 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 So in general, like what the kind of goals for the day or abstract things. So first things first is just like removing any blockers for the team, right? So just making sure because ultimately, right, we have a team operating, and so making sure that they're just able to do whatever they need to do in the most optimal manner. So job number one is to be, the anti-blocker. Just yeah, whatever it is, whether that's in sales and marketing and dev, and partnerships, just like okay, that's number one thing there first. Um, then, I mean, then when it comes just to raw like product stuff, yeah, that's just uh I switch between like Claude Code and Windsurf and every other tool out there, because and it's funny you've said this once. I think I do have more of a I succumb to shiny object syndrome more often than not. But I think and it's good. I think we take two opposing stances there. But I think it's good because it um ensures that I don't go off the rails. But but then it allows us to get exposed to like new things too. And so. Yeah, when it comes to coding, I'm in some sort of AI environment there. And uh and depending of whether we've already planned things out or everything, I'll obviously start with Pre.dev first, start to feed that in and just go to town. Um and then when it comes to like and then there's a then huge chunk of the day that I don't automate out is also just like being on calls with clients, new and old, dev agencies and founders, just, either doing sales or like feedback sessions, right? Just understanding, either trying to sell the product or improve it. And so that's a huge chunk of the day. and then yeah, the time spent on the phone with you, just like thinking about next steps and new approaches, and okay, what's what do we need to do next, and then yeah, and then obviously a bunch of other, and then day to day as a founder, like things come up all the time. And so yeah, whether that's hosting an event or some call with a potential partnership, or just like other random things, like coming up with like a blog post or an ad that I'm like, oh wait, I want to try this out. So yeah, I think there's a mixture of like manual experimentation of a bunch of things. Um, but but yeah, so it really does vary day to day, and every once in a while, you and I have like our um kind of coding sprints where we're like, yo, Adam, can you just handle sales for the next week? I just need to just dive in and get this feature done, or vice versa. Which is great to then have like a multi-faceted co-founder that you can just like rely on just being able to like handle handle things no matter
Yeah.
what.
That's one
Um,
thing, like we both can do the business side,
yeah,
both can do
yeah,
engineering and coding
yeah,
as well. So it's like
yeah.
we
It's like
we like
yeah,
intermix. Like one week, maybe, you're like, take the
yeah,
reins
yeah,
on sales and marketing this week.
yeah,
And like
yeah, yeah,
I'm gonna do coding, or I'm gonna be like, yo, like I'm going on this coding sprint. You're not gonna see me for 4 days. Like just make sure things go smooth.
yeah, yeah.
Speaking of you know, coding and whatever, what's like the next big feature you're working on? Or like it doesn't have to be big, but like what are some cool features you're currently working on that aren't released yet for Pre.dev?
Yeah. One, I
Because we
think
both we
there's
both work on different stuff
yeah, yeah, yeah,
entirely almost.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah. And I'm really excited to like see what Adam's working on, and he can get into that after. But no, I'm more focused right now on the dev agency experience side. And so like one of the things that works really well for Pre.dev in terms of our conversions is just like the streamlined way upon when you come onto Pre.dev, you can like feed in your idea immediately. And so we offer like a white labeled experience of this for dev agencies too. So they can obviously expedite their own in, inbound leads. And so next main thing is just streamlining that experience. Got a bunch of like really good feedback from the agencies on just like integrations and more streamlined ways to like handle how the widget per performs. And so yeah, going to be like, so that's my thing for the next like 3 days, just like bang out and yeah, have that work even better and smarter.
no, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, okay, then all of the features that you've currently shipped for Pre.dev, what's your favorite one?
The one that I love that gets used the most too is being able to auto suggest answers. It's really cool. It's so wild. Um, and it's funny because I use it myself too, and I'm like, oh my God, like the AI just knows what I kind of want, or just has even a better idea of like how the specific flow should like happen. Um, yeah, it was. They're just kind of inspired by like auto complete and stuff. And I was like, okay, yeah, there has to be just like an AI enhanced auto complete. And it actually shocks me till now that like chat GPT and stuff like doesn't have that auto suggest thing like baked into it.
Well, you saw it
Uh
here first. They're gonna steal it, but you saw it here
yeah,
first.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, that is, and it's so funny because it's like it wasn't a hard feature to build. But it's just it's one of those things that like it just when it comes to that's a really just good example of like user experience combined with engineering done right, where it's like really focused. Okay, what does the user want? Like what was the thing? And like the thing that you and I saw face to face is that when we would ask them questions about like specific flows, like they would like I don't know what happens when a user does this, like okay, I don't really care. So right? Being able to solve that pain point with just a simple thing, just press tab to autocomplete to get that answer.
Well, it's
Like
tab now,
perfect
but
kind
it
of
used to be something else. It used to be called answer for me.
yeah.
Reduced it, right? But like a long time ago, and it evolved to tab, taking after Cursor and Super
Yeah.
Maven and GitHub Copilot. Like we combine that at like a higher level, basically,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
and
Yep.
now
Yep.
it's
Yep.
seamless,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
So yeah, it knows what you're thinking. It knows your user journey before you do. You
Yeah.
know, it'll
Yeah.
actually ideate on your product for you.
Yes, yes,
So
yes, yes, yes.
it's
No,
pretty
yeah, yeah, that gets used a bunch, and that's really really fun to see happen.
definitely, yeah. Um, you know, it's crazy being a founder that also just works on the product too. But it's like that's where we save the money right now. So, but
It's funny. I
it
think
also like makes us more hands on, and we can really like shift really fast.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, right. I think it's just because and once again, right, I think it goes to the kind of synchronicity of like these higher order skills and raw skills, right? And it's because we just have the raw skills of coding and combined with that higher order thinking about, okay, this is what I want to achieve. It's just sometimes just good to just combine both, right? And so it's like, all right, I'm gonna go into this coding thing, get this done, just because I know I can execute it in this way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
For the listeners, we both studied business and engineering
yeah,
in college, and that's where we met. So
yeah,
we were in the same program, and essentially we gained both of those skills. So it's kind of like a different co-founder relationship. Usually you have a tech guy and then you have the business guy, but we're kind of both.
yeah,
And
yeah,
yeah, it's unique. I would say it's unique. It doesn't happen very often. We're like Navy SEALs, like not to gas ourselves up, but we have to. I mean, it's a race out there, there's not a huge win rate in the startup community, put it that way.
No, and there's I think we wouldn't be doing this if we didn't think we were going to win. And I
Yeah.
think, seeing the successes that we've had now, and I think what the coolest moments are like when I get emails from the founders we've like helped is like when they win, because that's just like awesome, because and that fundamentally means that the formula works, right?
Mhm.
Because fundamentally for Pre.dev to become a you know massive entity and to really conquer the IT outsourcing world and the world of building product and software, we are only going to grow if our clients win too.
What's
And
an example
so
of a
yeah,
client that you personally spoke to that won in your eyes?
yeah. I can't reveal like specific details about it yet, but basically like
Just a
they're they
general
were
sense.
very very non no I can give an abstract take, but yeah, they just came from a very non-tech background, but knew the industry that they wanted to build this app in really really well, and so yeah, we just like managed to scope things out for them first. The first win point was like when they kind of try to go out on their own and hire an agency, they were gonna get charged like 100 grand. I think when we scoped everything out, and matched them with the agency, I think it came out to like 20. So that was obviously just one. He was just so thankful there. But then just like the product got built, he's been able to go to market, and he's now securing funding.
What was the
Um,
timeline for that, though? What was the timeline for that? Before he came to pre-dev and then after he came to pre-dev?
yeah. So before, he was still trying to like understand like what's even required and everything. So that in of itself was like months, right? So that was just months of just like, what do I even need to like, what is required to like build this, right? So that's obviously just time just gone there. And so from the time that he started to engage with Pre.dev and him being matched, I think, and everything being launched, I think it was like less than two, 2 months. Just like him actually being able to go to market. So I mean, insane.
Yeah. It's like that quote that we say, it's like the most expensive part of software is not engineering. It's
Yeah,
picking what to build in the first place. Like, how do I
yeah,
know what the right thing to build in the first place is?
yeah,
Before I'm
right.
willing to invest $70 an hour, $100 an hour into devs.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah,
you think lawyers are expensive. Like, imagine if you had to go back and forth, with your lawyer as much as you do with devs and stuff. Like,
yeah.
the cost can rack up really, really fast.
Yeah. And just really quick on that point, one thing that we've seen founders that come to us as well, there's a huge amount of them that have like tried going to a dev agency first, already paid them, but because there was no transparency in like what was actually going to get built, right? They come to us with like slop and it like half works, but like there's no sense of like why the choices were made and everything. And so yeah, it just goes again to like if you don't have that strict plan when you go and start, and the plan may change, and Pre.dev is also built to like handle plans that change, but if you don't have that plan in the first place, you're just going to set yourself up to lose.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's well said. It's it's a problem that pretty much all founders deal with. The accelerators like try to put band-aids on it by giving them like these university courses, but at the end of the day, a startup is about building a product, giving it to customers, getting feedback,
Yeah,
and you could put all the fluff you want around it, all the business jargon around it, and that's what it comes down to, the core is like, do
yeah,
you fulfill that pain point? So yeah, I mean, we just help you, get to that point a lot faster. You know,
yeah. And
maybe it's not for you. Maybe you didn't realize it was going to cost you 85K, and you could just say, you know what, actually, I can't afford this. But some people also think it's only going to cost 5 or 10K to build like a full scale mobile app and web, and you know, so connecting to banking infrastructure and all this. It's like people are just don't know how much it costs. It's such a simple problem. It's like,
yeah,
how much is it going to cost to build this thing? There's no
yep.
way to find that out right now.
Yeah. And I think us, yeah, going after that as the problem to solve, I think it's gonna transform the consulting industry, because I think historically, the moment you bring pricing transparency to any industry, it could just completely overhauls it. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I think that's like one thing that we have di discovered really well. And so it's taken a little bit of time for us to kind of spread that word, but we're seeing now word of mouth has been like like probably our biggest growth now. And so I think as people are starting to understand, wait, this market that was opaque can now be transparent. All right, let's pre-dev it.
Yeah. This guy that I talked to like last Friday, who shouts out to Lior Weinstein. He's the founder of a company called CTOX, and he was telling me that we remind him of this company that his friend sold to autotrader.com that basically quoted them for the cars, and that essentially both the dealers, well, it was made for the individuals at the beginning, but then the dealers ended up using it as a source of truth. So I feel like we could kind of do that for pricing software, but
Yes.
in addition to that, like why should people trust our prices in the first place? Kind of brings us to, another topic we wanted to touch on in this podcast, which was
Yeah.
benchmarking our system, right? Because what's a good benchmark for pre-dev? Like the difference between us and Cursor and Claude 4 and all that is like they're testing it on SWE, software engineering benchmark, right? That's not really a good benchmark for us. So yeah, maybe Arjun, if you could get a little bit into like the work we've been doing lately with benchmarking and how we're thinking about that, and the data set that we've found, and what implications that has on being a source of truth for quoting software.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it's pretty cool. We managed to find basically and there's a few data sets out there that basically just had like a historical kind of like a specific software project that was worked on, and then how long it actually took to build. And there's constraints with regards to like the tech stack that was used and everything there. And so, yeah, basically we just we've just now started to compare, like we feed those inputs into Pre.dev, into O3, into Claude, you know, Gemini 2.5, and basically see, okay, all right, let's compare their plans and outputs with that of what actually happened. And so, yeah, I think from the initial benchmarks we've seen, at least they uh, basically Pre.dev is just 6 times as accurate, or basically the error is 6 times lower than that of O3 and these other foundational soda reasoning models. And that's just like, yeah, uh that's really just because of the way that we've orchestrated and, built out Pre.dev to be a architect, and have it be trained on, real life data.
The question is, we need to get we need to get a human expert to do it as well, because like
Yeah, yeah,
one, it would take them like hours per example, right? But two, I wonder what like the error against the human would be too,
yeah,
you know.
yes,
But
yes, yes,
yeah, that's just something, we're gonna release the full study, as like a mini research paper type thing, white paper,
yeah,
whatever you want to call it. And you'll see more about that too. But from our initial findings and what we've released so far, which we released it on LinkedIn and Twitter and stuff like that, the data that we tested it on, it shows that we're state of the art in this domain, which is a very important thing, because anytime any company in the world builds software, there's a CFO that has to allocate some of their budget towards that software. And if they
yeah,
over or undershoot, that's money on the table essentially.
yes, yeah, yeah,
And yeah, so the implications could be pretty insane.
yeah, yes,
Let's
yes,
get back to just founder experience, right? Because we talk to founders. Founders use our product quite a lot because the 0 to 1 case is so obviously they benefit the most, right? They make the most improvement the fastest. The other companies at least have something going. They might have a couple PMs or engineers they could bounce stuff off of, but the founders themselves, they really have nothing to work with. So they're basically helpless when they come to us. They like to pretend like, they've been putting work into this, and it's, they've made progress, but 99% of the time they've literally made zero progress. And then as soon as they use pre-dev, 2 minutes later, it's like they just fast forwarded like 2 years.
yeah,
And I guess raw experiences as a founder, because not everything is good every single day. A couple weeks ago, month ago, month and a half, I forgot exactly, but Arjun, he had to take some time off because he got his shoulder cut up. He had a lingering injury that, took a long time. And I'll say, like, beforehand, I gave him the forewarning that, it's going to be painful and stuff. And I think on the other side of it, like, when he was in it, he realized that it was like a little more painful than he expected. And, he had to take some time off and then come back, code with one hand. Like, what was that experience like just from a raw founder point of view? And how did you get back? Because now you're like in super, it's like you have a second win, basically.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think, the first few days were just I I think I thoroughly just enjoy the work. I think it's just like there is just it is just honestly fun. And so not having that fun just sucks. And so yeah, I think yeah, for me it was I remember even asking the doc and everything like, like when can I get back to work? Um yeah, and so yeah, it was really it, interesting because I think it was the first time I really got exposed to like using my mic on my phone to like just dictate everything. So I would like still be like active on Slack and stuff, but like typing with like one hand is just not something I'm good at. And so yeah, it was actually cool because I was like, oh, okay, wait, all right, this is actually better than I remember it being. So yeah, those days were really about voice mode and everything there. And yeah, I mean, it was just, yeah, I just like forced myself to just be like, all right, I mean, screw it,
It was
right?
like,
That
chill,
like,
bro, like you're wiggling your toe, like
yeah, 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 yeah.
one finger at a time, like
Yeah, 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 right. Yeah, no. So I think you just have to like power power through, and I think if you really love what you do, um, it just you just want to do it, right? So if I really didn't want to and everything, I think I would have, probably just like had a harder time. But yeah, I think it was a very intrinsic thing of like, all right, let's get back in action within reason. I think, obviously as I've gotten older too, it's like there's if you completely ignore the health, it's gonna just screw you over more and more in the long term, which just means more lost time in the future, which has more value. So obviously this is I took the required like rest too, and I'm doing like my
yeah, yeah, you
PT.
followed your doctor's orders,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. No, I will say at least now I'm doing like PT like twice a week. So I'm like, actually like trying to get back in like full healthy shape. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's like a humbling experience for anybody when they realize, like, like when I was saying you got that second win, it's like
Yeah.
anytime something like that happens where you
Oh my
literally
God.
lose all ability to do even the most basic stuff, like it forces you to like build back up and reconsider what's important and stuff. So yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I can see that in like your energy these days. It's like much higher than even before the surgery, which is
Yeah,
weird
yeah.
because you think it'd be the opposite.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, when you temporarily like lose something and you're like you or like you took for granted. Um, the moment you have it back, you're like, oh my God, this is like amazing. So yeah, I'm really gonna maximize my time and everything. Yeah, dude, what can I say? Pre pre-dev life.
Yeah, he's back. He's back. We're in it for the long haul.
Yeah.
Um, so today, here's another one. Today, Andreessen Horowitz, they released an article about GEO versus SEO. GEO being like generative engine optimization versus search engine optimization. So I wanted to get maybe your take since like coincidentally, as I was reading that article, you sent me like a transcript from Fathom for like a call with a founder you were on simultaneously that literally was an exact moment of GEO.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you just want to run through that, and what's your take on the GEO versus SEO and like
Yeah. No, so one, yeah, I mean it was a wild moment. And it's cool. And I've seen a few others on LinkedIn kind of be really shocked too, because it is just like it's so weird because GEO is almost like a referral compared to like SEO, which is much more about like I ranked my search, right? Because like an AI, which we're now taken more and more granted as like a expert, right, is literally recommending you to users to get stuff done. And so in the case of this founder, he was like literally asking like, okay, what's the best way for me to like build this app? And it was like Pre.dev. And so that like just for me was just like such a cool moment because it was like, okay, yeah, wow, this is like
Yeah, cursor. Literally, it was in
there's so
cursor. It
many
was like,
it like gives you so many thoughts. It's like, okay, wow, like how is the AI evaluating this and everything? I mean, it's obviously for us as a business, it's great, and it like made me realize, like, okay, yeah, that's something we should be investing our time to like understand more deeply, and because yeah, I mean, the future of where people are going to ask about things is going to be LLM and chat based, right? Where increasingly so, right? Because I think about this a bunch where I'm like, I want pre-dev to be the first thing that anyone thinks about when they're about to get some software built, right? And so I'm always like thinking about, okay, how do we get ourselves at that point of time, right?
yeah,
What
get
are
that.
they doing right before so that we appear there, right? And so we obviously run Google Ads, which works well, LinkedIn ads, right? So you're in the context of when people are either searching for things like how much does it cost to build an app, or on LinkedIn where you can go where that's like the place where people are seeing by coding and looking to get stuff built. But I totally see, and it was really interesting that this founder was like asking an LLM how to get this built, and I can totally see that only increasing in volume, right? And so because people are trusting LLM outputs more and more, and rightfully so, they are getting more a accurate. Like I know I like feed X-rays and stuff into Chat GPT, and I'm like, yo, like what's wrong or
Your
whatever, right?
shoulder's fucked up.
Yeah,
You gotta get surgery, bro. You gotta listen to your doctor. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But so yeah, now it really like it begs the question now of like, okay, how are we optimizing content and our presence on the web and everything for AI to ingest well. And I was literally just like thinking about this because it was so funny when the New York Times I think was suing OpenAI, right? Because OpenAI was scraping all of New York Times articles and stuff and
Mhm.
feeding it out. And I was like, okay, clearly OpenAI and Anthropic and all these guys are scraping the rest of the web too, right? That's obviously how they learn about things. And so it was like, okay, wow, like actually this kind of really leans into like, okay, yeah, parts of our site should be AI crawler optimized, right? Like when
Yeah.
AIs come and learn about the web, we should make it super, super abundantly clear, right? What pre.dev does and what it and how it solves things, so the AIs learn and understand that. And so that's a mixture, and that's going to require like a bunch of optimizations in terms of our content, in terms of our own site, and
It's almost
so
like our landing page becomes a prompt into AI
yeah,
versus just trying to keyword optimize shit.
yeah. No, there's even like a LLMs.txt that sites have now, which is basically like a new like robots.txt, where like a robots.txt was a file that like sites would have to like dictate to a crawler how it should act, right? And LLMs.txt is literally like showing like the AI what this website is about. So yeah, like these are things that we do, and we'll have to improve at to just like make sure our GEO is just like only increasing in presence.
Let's put your Wall Street Journal hat on, and um, I remember I saw some interview with Perplexity CEO Aravind Srinivas, or however you say his name. I probably butchered it, but
No, no, no. That's
yeah, he was saying that one of the reasons why Perplexity has a case against Google is that Google's fundamental business is like Google Ads and SEO based. So now that, you're moving away from, if they just put Gemini as Google, right? Then they lose out on all that business basically, right? So, what's your take on that?
yeah. This is a story over and over again where like if a business isn't willing to kill itself, it will die, right? And so I think yeah, and that's really what it fu fundamentally boils down to, right? If you don't constantly kill yourself as a company, right? Companies will come after you. And in Google's case, look, it's really hard. Like ad search is a golden goose that has been laying eggs for the last like 20 years, right? And they have had a borderline monopoly, right? And so monopolies are very, very hard to give up historically, right? Um, but I will say I give them a lot of credit now. If their most recent Google I/O event,
Yeah.
they went hard.
Yeah.
And I think now they themselves admitted that they, spent a lot of 2024 trying to catch up. And in 2025, they're doing a damn good job of leading the market in terms of at least foundational model performance. And there's a whole discussion to be had why I'm very bullish about them doing that more and more in the future, just because they have the raw cash flow plus the existing infrastructure, hardware infrastructure that they own and have optimized on.
Talent too.
So
They have it
yeah,
already.
yeah, right. So they're gonna obviously increase their foundational model stuff will obviously get better. The real and VO3, what I think is like a game changer. And I was even thinking about like what the future of YouTube is. And it is so interesting because like in a world very soon, I could see YouTube not only being a place where you're going to find content created by creators, but you're using it to consume content that you're imagining. Like and Google already knows the kinds of videos and stuff that I like to watch. It could basically just start to create content for me. And then there's a whole way to monetize that. And it's really interesting. I think it gives them a case to like in the future compete against like Netflix and these other streaming things. I mean, YouTube TV is already the most watched streaming thing out there. And so it's really interesting that this just gives them a whole new opening there. I think the
Even
hardest
Netflix,
thing that
like you would always have a new season, like never ending, right?
ex- exactly, you can go on and on and on and on and on, and you can have fans create stories. I mean, it can go wild. I think in terms of and that's just on the YouTube side itself. So I'm very bullish that they're gonna actually be able to execute that well, or at least I'm hopeful, because that'll just be really cool. Um, what they're gonna have a really hard time doing, I think, is um beating the GPT brand name. That is just one thing that the first mover advantage that OpenAI had that has just done like really, really well, right? Because even when you had the news freaking about DeepSeek and how DeepSeek got to the top of the App Store and everything. When you look at long-term usage and everything, that didn't even have an effect on Chat GPT. Like it has become such a household brand name, and the
Yeah.
moat that it has now is that of memory, right? That GPT obviously knows what you've been speaking to it about, right? And people often tend to, and people are evolving upon those things, right? Um, And so that is going to be a moat that Google will have to like increasingly try to
Yeah.
beat. Luckily, it has context of your search history, your Gmail, and they're already doing integrations there. So
They have
yeah,
just
I mean, I'm hopeful Google can execute well, but they just have a really bad history
yeah.
of like building a bunch of stuff and then axing it 6 months later. Yeah.
What's weird is that there's so many of the same like products.
Oh my, yeah.
It,
Google's
it's like
because there's Vertex, there's
convergence. Like
Gemini.
Perplexity is literally the same shit as ChatGPT web search, which is the same shit as Gemini search. ChatGPT deep
Deep
research about the
research.
same as Grok. Deep research is the same as it's like maybe one's marginally better than the other, and then Claude releases like a marginally better code model, and it's like slightly better than like whatever OpenAI or you know Google did, or Gemini 2.5 Flash is slightly more fast and slightly more smart than 4.1 Mini. It's like I don't know, like it would be hard to compete at that level, put it that way. And
Yeah, and so I think yeah, it's right. It's interesting, right? And so I think you're gonna have a mixture of um abstract AI experiences and then nuanced ones, right? And so this goes back to like GEO, right? Where Chat GPT and Gemini and um, these more abstract chat agents are ways to feed into like when you want to get nuanced and have a catered experience and everything there. Um, so I think for us at Pre.dev, we're in a interesting spot there because we win no matter who wins. As long as we do an
yeah,
effective job at making sure that our presence and everything is across the board on how all these LLMs scrape and everything
yeah.
there.
But also they're all too scared to release APIs or MCPs because they don't want anything to plug into them. Like, why doesn't V0 have an MCP? Right?
Yeah, I mean, who knows? I mean, I think they actually just launched their own model, where they're trying to basically create their own, which I'm sure under
It
the hood
makes
is like,
sense. It makes sense.
yeah, yeah. I mean, there's going to be I think the era of model moat and everything is going to increasingly go away. And so I think, yeah, I mean, I won't be surprised if V0 and all of these guys have more like MCP integrations and stuff soon. Because the consumer is gonna want it. Um, and now it depends on like who their consumers are, right? Like, I doubt if you ask your average Joe, they know what MCP is, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm 99% of AI users probably don't know what
Let's say
MCP is.
API. Like, if any of them
Yeah,
had APIs, we could just plug into it right now.
yeah,
We
yeah.
can't because
No,
none of them want to
yeah,
release.
but they'll do it. I
Yeah,
have
no,
no.
I believe they will.
Yeah.
It's just funny that they haven't,
Yeah,
right?
I
And
mean, it
then,
just hasn't. I think, in their end, right? If I had to put their founders hat on, right, they've had the growth that they're very, very happy with, and so they're just prioritizing that, right? No one's, I think, really asking them for those kinds of integrations and stuff yet.
yeah.
So
I
yeah,
do think vibe coding, like the vibe coding, like the bold V0 lovables, that's like the most saturated other than like sales SDRs and stuff like
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah,
Right? Because like even yesterday you showed me this new one and it was good, like emergent dot something.
yeah,
And like there's like seven every week from YCOM that like are the same interface as Lovable and V0 and like just do one little thing like slightly better. Like and
yeah, yeah.
then Gemini or sorry, Google with Firebase and then
Codebase,
ChatGPT releases like a
Codex,
seven type of lookalike
yeah,
and it's like which one do you like? And then I'm over here like, yeah, I'm still using cursor because like I just that was the first one I tried and I just think it at the end of the day, like I'm not gonna like go to my web browser to code. So,
yeah, yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah. No, yeah, I mean, I think it's good. I mean, I kind of love it because it just pushes the boundary more and more, right? Like,
Yeah.
so there's no stagnation. So and I think it's great for us. I think the existence of vibe coders and everything just allows people to get to stages where they couldn't have and opens up the possibility of having even more. And then that's exactly where we come in. So
Vibe.
I'm a huge
PM
fan.
it. Vibe
Vibe
PM it.
I hope vibe coding gets even better. I mean, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no, I think it only helps us.
What's what's a company slash founder that inspires you? Maybe not like one from like decades past, like Steve Jobs and but maybe like a new age current founder um company that that you think inspires you.
Oh man. Um,
Because I'm sure you can name some ones that you hate off top, but we're not going to talk about that. I'm just kidding.
yeah. No, it's I take it in much more of a thing where like I admire certain choices that specific founders and stuff do, right? Or the way they conduct
Well, I'll give you one that you were
themselves.
telling me. Owner, right? Owner.com, right?
Oh yeah. Owner.com. Oh
I'll,
yeah. I
I'll
mean,
answer for you. I'm like,
yeah. Sorry. No, I think he's
not
like
just the
great.
founder alone, like and their personality. I meant like founder company model.
Yeah. So I
Yeah,
think right his is a great example because like he like really deeply knew the industry that he was in. Like he was like I think the story starts up like he was essentially building it for like his mom first, right? And then kind of really just went deep into the kind of issue that she was facing and then basically started to research around it and see, okay, wait, other restaurants face this too. Okay, all right. Let's get into this specific niche and let's do it really, really well. And I think he's done a really, really good job of like getting him and owner.com like that branding just at the right place at the right time. And so they've grown really, really well. And yeah, I mean, complete props to him and the team, and their pricing is on point. Like they built something that fundamentally has helped their clients, right?
yeah,
And so I think the moment that you do that as a founder, I mean, ultimate props. Like they deserve their valuation. Their growth is on point. They've really done they've really done well by their clientele. And so yeah, I mean, I think even one thing I really like on their site as well, which is like really cool, is where they actually like discourage or essentially basically say that like look, if you're a brand new restaurant and stuff yet that does not have like at least some operations, you shouldn't try us yet, right? Like, and so he's like, look, if you already have things and they're disorganized, okay, we can come in and we'll organize the whole kind of thing. And so he also just deeply understood of like product timing, right? Which is I think is a really hard thing to do well because the gut thing is like, oh, let's go after all restaurants, right? And where he was like, actually, no, we're gonna get into the point of where they have the ability to pay, right? And we can actually solve the pain point well. And so I think
that
him being
kind of
able to
cross
like,
paths with COVID too. You know,
yeah, right. And so being able to navigate that. And so, yeah, and very, very young guy. And so, yeah, I'm just working like super, super hard, super thoughtful. Yeah,
yeah. Shout out to owner.
yeah.
So this one's gonna be the last question. I think we've been on here for a good amount of time, but what's one new skill or thing you've picked up working at pre or like working on pre-dev for the last year and a half, 2 years? Because coming into this, you weren't that deep into AI actually.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Um,
what's a new skill you picked up?
yeah. I think just as I think AI, everyone has pi pi picked up as a skill just because AI has evolved. But I think one thing I've picked up more is just a more aptitude for consumer mindset. Um, I think that's been a big thing because most of the things I worked on prior weren't very consumer heavy, right?
Mhm.
Which is a whole other kind of skill set and business and everything there, right? Um, a bunch of it was very like deep tech stuff for like right
Yeah,
where like
like
engineering was
trading
the main.
platform type stuff.
Yeah, 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 right.
Like you don't know
So
you're not talking to your users. This was
yeah,
Pre.dev is half B2B, half consumer essentially.
yeah, right. So I think really picking up the skill set of like talking to consumers, understanding pain points and everything, much like that has been, I think, the main thing that's like worked out well. And so that's allowed me to like think about like our like marketing and messaging and stuff in a deeper kind of more meaningful mindset too. Yeah.
Yeah, no, totally agree. Totally agree. Well, I think we've come to the end of this episode. In future episodes, we don't want to cover everything and then not have anything else to say after this. So we got to leave some of it a mystery. But thank you guys for tuning in to the Artificial Intelligence episode 3. Look out for our social media. Look out for our YouTube. Like and subscribe. This has been a Pre.dev Productions. Have a good one, guys.